In the early hours of a November morning, Mauricio Leal's elegant Bogotá mansion was strangely quiet. Mauricio, a beloved stylist known for his charm and skill, had suddenly gone silent, missing important calls and a big appointment he wouldn't normally ignore. By midday, his friends and driver were growing uneasy. It wasn't like Mauricio to just disappear. When his brother Yonier arrived at the mansion, he was met with a shocking scene that would send ripples through Colombia. Both Mauricio and his mother were found lifeless. As details emerged, one pressing question lingered in everyone's mind. What happened inside Mauricio Leal's home on that fateful night? Mauricio Leal was born on November 25, 1973, in Cartago, Valle del Cauca, Colombia. From a young age, Mauricio was captivated by the world of beauty. As a child, he could spend hours mesmerized by the salons he passed by, although he didn't fully understand that this fascination would become a lifelong passion. His interest in beauty began to take shape when his mother, Marlene Hernandez, a woman who enjoyed learning new skills, decided to take a hairdressing course. Mauricio, around 10 or 11 years old at the time, begged his mother to let him attend with her. Although she initially told him he couldn't go because he wasn't enrolled, he didn't give up. Instead, he would watch her learn from outside the classroom, captivated by the artistry. Mauricio's early years, however, weren't easy. His parents often argued, creating a tense home environment. Influenced by this, some of his siblings got into trouble, though Mauricio managed to stay focused. At just 15, he urged his parents to consider separating, believing that constant conflict wasn't beneficial for anyone. When his father heard that Mauricio had suggested the separation, he taunted him, questioning who would take care of his mother and siblings. Mauricio didn't respond with words. He resolved to show through his actions that responsibility and resilience were not defined by anyone's expectations. Determined to support his family, Mauricio left Cartago and moved to Cali. He found a modest room and took on various jobs, from packing goods to delivering food on his bicycle, all while continuing his studies, often sleeping only 4 hours a night. Despite these challenges, Mauricio maintained a positive outlook. One day, in a conversation with a woman at his aunt's church, he shared his passion for hairdressing but explained that financial responsibilities kept him from pursuing it fully. By a stroke of luck, the woman knew someone who owned a salon and offered to introduce Mauricio. At just 16, Mauricio began working at the salon. Without experience, he started with basic tasks: sweeping, cleaning, serving coffee, and running errands. After some time, he gathered the courage to tell the salon owner he knew how to cut hair, a claim he wasn't entirely confident about. The owner challenged him to prove it by cutting his own hair. In that moment, Mauricio, though inexperienced, showed his natural talent, impressing the owner and securing a role as a stylist. Mauricio's popularity grew rapidly. Some clients were initially skeptical, seeing him in his school uniform, but word of his skills quickly spread. Within just 7 months, Mauricio became the most sought-after stylist in the salon, allowing him to provide a better life for his mother and siblings. His older brother, Yonye, often heard their mother express pride in Mauricio's hard work. By 1995, at 22, Mauricio was well regarded in Cali, known not only for his haircuts but also for his high-level makeup skills. Long waits to see him became common. Tired of not receiving the credit and pay he deserved, he decided to open his own salon, naming it Mauricio Leal. Though he faced challenges with expenses, starting with just a plastic chair and a borrowed mirror, clients filled his new salon within a weekend. Soon the demand became so high that Mauricio had to hire his first employee, his brother, Yonye. He taught Yonye the skills and hard work required in the trade, marking the beginning of Mauricio's career as both a stylist and a business owner, all while building a legacy that would carry his name forward in the beauty industry. Within just a month of opening, Mauricio Leal's salon saw a rapid expansion. One of the salons where Mauricio had previously worked went out of business after he left, as his departure caused a sharp drop in clientele. As a result, former employees from that salon, along with others from different salons, began asking Mauricio for work. In a matter of months, his team grew to 35 employees. His salon was now equipped with high-end tools, and Mauricio, along with his family, enjoyed a level of prosperity they once thought unreachable. Yet Mauricio's ambition continued to drive him. Feeling that Cali was becoming too small for his aspirations, he packed his belongings and headed to Bogotá, Colombia's economic powerhouse, determined to establish himself as one of the country's top stylists. In Bogotá, Mauricio humbly started by working in a friend's salon, and he quickly gained recognition. Several of his former clients from Cali, now professional models and TV presenters, chose him over other stylists in the capital. Within 3 months, Mauricio opened his second salon, this time in one of Bogotá's prime areas, further solidifying his growing reputation. Despite his fame and success, Mauricio never forgot his roots or his family. His mother, Marlene, was his pride and joy, and he treated her to a lifestyle of luxury, complete with vacations, yacht trips, and champagne toasts. However, Mauricio's success cast a contrasting shadow over his siblings. His half-brother Carlos Andrés, sadly, was serving a sentence in a maximum security prison for a serious crime. Meanwhile, his older brother, Yonye, had also opened a salon, thanks to Mauricio's guidance. Although Yonye managed to establish his business, he never achieved the same level of success as Mauricio, leading to resentment. In the midst of facing his own difficulties, including a divorce, Yonye asked to move in with Mauricio. Mauricio, ever generous, agreed. Despite the demanding nature of his work, which caused him severe thoracic and back pain, Mauricio managed his condition with pain relief medication, even resorting to morphine when the pain became unbearable. Over the years, he learned to live with it, but a tragic event would soon overshadow any efforts at improvement. On Monday, November 22, 2021, Mauricio's career was at its peak. That morning, he was scheduled for an important meeting with representatives from the Miss Universe pageant, where he was set to negotiate a contract that would place him on an international stage. However, when the representatives arrived at his salon, Mauricio was nowhere to be found. Concerned, Karen, who was the daughter of Mauricio's trusted driver, José Jair Ruiz, reached out to her father. Jair, who was like a brother to Mauricio, shared that Mauricio had messaged him that morning, saying he wanted to sleep a bit longer. By 2 p.m., the absence became alarming. Karen's calls to both Mauricio and his mother went unanswered, and each attempt seemed to be met with someone hanging up. Growing increasingly worried, Jair contacted Yonye, who was living with Mauricio at the time, to ask if he had any information. Together, they went to Mauricio's residence in La Calera, a luxurious residential complex. Familiar to the security guards, they entered without issue. Upon entering, they found the home in a seemingly normal state, no signs of violence or theft. However, an ominous feeling overcame Jair when he tried to open the master bedroom door, which was locked. When he received no response, he climbed outside to a window overlooking the garden. To his surprise, the window wasn't locked, and upon entering, he was met with a devastating sight. Blood covered the scene, with Mauricio lying lifeless on the bed, a knife still embedded in his body. Beside him was the body of his mother, Marlene, in an equally tragic state. Yonye rushed in after hearing Jair's screams. Shocked and horrified, he knew immediately that his brother and mother were gone. Fighting the impulse to approach the bodies, Yonye urged Jair to step back to avoid contaminating the scene. Initial speculation pointed to a murder-suicide, especially when police found a note signed by Mauricio reading, "I love you. Forgive me. I can't take it anymore." Although the letter seemed genuine, the scene itself suggested otherwise. Mauricio's body was positioned with a knife in his abdomen, still held by his hands, alongside several pills on the nightstand, which at first glance appeared to support the theory of a suicide. However, a closer inspection by investigators led to a different conclusion. This was not a case of suicide, but rather a carefully staged double homicide. Mauricio's body bore 4 deep stab wounds to the abdomen, each with significant force, which immediately aroused suspicion. Typically, someone attempting to end their own life would seek a quick and less painful method. Analyzing the wounds, experts suggested it would be nearly impossible for Mauricio to inflict such deep injuries on himself repeatedly. The idea of someone inflicting a fatal wound, pulling out the knife, and repeating this multiple times seemed highly unlikely, especially given the considerable strength required. Additionally, Mauricio was right-handed, making it improbable that he could deliver such force consistently to that part of his body. Adding to the suspicion were the numerous bruises on Mauricio's forearms, indicative of a struggle, as though he had tried to fend off an assailant. Speculation soon arose regarding a potential motive, including theories about criminal connections. Some believe that Mauricio's business success and income sources might have attracted the attention of criminal organizations, given his prior involvement in a scandal when he was linked to the Clinton List, a blacklist for those suspected of laundering drug-related money. Years before, Mauricio had partnered with a wealthy client to open a salon in Miami, which later failed. The client was later revealed to be associated with the family of a notorious cartel leader. Consequently, authorities temporarily froze Mauricio's assets and accounts. Although he eventually recovered, this past incident fueled theories about his death potentially being a targeted attack. However, doubts emerged regarding this theory. If a criminal organization had been involved, it seemed unlikely that they would leave no trace of forced entry in Mauricio's heavily guarded residence or resort to using a knife instead of a firearm. The brutal nature of the wounds, particularly those inflicted on his mother Marlene, suggested personal anger, as the injuries were far too severe to be random or impersonal. The case soon gained media attention, with television programs exploring Mauricio's life and interviewing those who knew him, including his loyal driver, Jair Ruiz. Jair, visibly shaken in interviews, had discovered the bodies and faced intense scrutiny from Mauricio's older brother, Yonye. Yonye, in contrast, exhibited a puzzling demeanor following his brother's death. In interviews, he expressed a sense of duty to carry on Mauricio's legacy, remarking that, "There's no use in being sad. Mauricio would want us to continue." Yet his statements and actions raised suspicions, as he appeared to claim Mauricio's accomplishments and possessions as his own, even wearing his brother's white jacket in multiple public appearances. In one interview, Yonye inadvertently referred to Jair as "my driver," catching himself with an awkward correction to clarify Jair had actually been his brother's driver. As time went on, public opinion diverged. Some saw Yonye as innocent, while others believed his calculated statements were rehearsed. The police were initially criticized for their perceived slowness, but on January 15, 2022, Yonye was arrested in Bogota on charges of double homicide. He was carrying a large sum of cash at the time, suggesting he might have planned to flee or use his newfound inheritance for a lavish lifestyle. The arrest stunned the nation, but even more shocking was Yonye's eventual confession at the Attorney General's office. In court, Yonye delivered a carefully worded statement. "I have made a very personal and important decision, freely and voluntarily, to accept the charges through an agreement with the prosecutor's office. I extend my sincerest apologies to my family, my children, the victims, and all of Colombia for these events." His admission, however, was laden with euphemisms, referring to Mauricio and Marlene only as the victims and distancing himself from any emotional connection. For many, Yonye's lack of empathy explained why he had never achieved Mauricio's level of success. Unlike his brother, he lacked Mauricio's humanity and kindness. The confession seemed to conclude the case, but a sudden twist reopened the investigation. Under Colombian law, a guilty verdict does not guarantee a severe sentence, with potential outcomes ranging from a life sentence to a mere year in prison or even a fine. In Yonye's case, his initial trial declared him innocent, only for a subsequent trial to find him guilty. As the legal process unfolded, the public awaited the final sentence, knowing that in Colombia, the outcome could mean either justice served or an unexpected release. On April 22, 2022, in a courtroom appearance, Yonye made a surprising statement. "Today, I feel clearer and more aware. With this newfound clarity, I can firmly say I acted under pressure, and yesterday I made the decision, which I shared with my family, to renounce this prejudice. I've said it before and will say it again, freely and sincerely, I am innocent. My life has been dedicated to serving my family, my children, and society." Yonye had claimed innocence from the beginning, even after receiving threats against himself and other family members. Interestingly, Jair, Mauricio's driver, also faced backlash, despite the fact that he had neither been present at the residence when the murders occurred nor possessed a key to the home, both conditions that applied to Yonye. The pieces of the case began to come together as more details surfaced. 4 months before the murders, Yonye had moved in with Mauricio, who had always lived with their mother. Many believe that Yonye had already planned the tragic events long before moving in. By this time, Yonye was nearly 50, facing mounting debts from his struggling salon business and feeling increasingly isolated from his own family. His life, he realized, was on a downward spiral, while Mauricio's success and prominence only continued to grow. From this twisted perspective, Yonye saw himself in Mauricio's shadow, resentful of his younger brother's success and apparent favoritism within the family. Though Mauricio was generous with him, even asking for small favors with a cautious tone, likely knowing Yonye's volatile temperament, the relationship remained strained. The evening before the murders, Yonye attended a family gathering, later making a point to emphasize that he had been out and that Mauricio and their mother had not left their rooms. Security records later confirmed his movements in and out of the complex. Around 9 p.m., while Yonye was out, Mauricio sent what would be his final voice message to his brother. The message was simple, asking Yonye to pick up some cookies, but Mauricio's tone seemed unusually cautious, as if aware of his brother's temper. At 11 p.m., Yonye returned to the mansion and claimed he left the cookies on a table without speaking to his family before heading to bed. Throughout his statements, Yonye maintained a detached attitude, repeatedly suggesting that the murders happened while he was asleep. When confronted with evidence that the murders likely took place in the early morning, he claimed he'd taken valerian drops for a deep sleep and left for work the next morning without seeing anyone. Given the mansion's high security, it would have been nearly impossible for an outsider to enter without Jair's help. Mauricio often shared that he was close to his mother and trusted friends, but if a family member displayed questionable behavior, he had no problem distancing himself. Tensions with Yonye had escalated over money, with Mauricio's refusal to lend him more reinforcing that Yonye had no direct claim to his wealth. After the murders, police noted several oddities in Yonye's behavior. Around 11 a.m., he was captured on security footage leaving the mansion, and shortly after, sending a voice message to Marlene's phone, a bizarre move that many saw as either a mocking gesture or a twisted attempt at covering his tracks. He even sent out goodbye messages to Mauricio's contacts, pretending to be his brother, a revelation that further unsettled investigators. Security footage from the residential complex confirmed that Yonye was in the mansion from 11 p.m. until 11 a.m. the following day, which coincides with the estimated time frame of the murders. A neighbor reported hearing Marlene shout that night, "Yonye, enough, I'm tired of this." To which Yonye allegedly responded, "Mom, always with the same thing." It's believed that shortly after this confrontation, Yonye attacked his mother first. The fact that the murders were committed with kitchen knives from the home further suggested that the culprit was someone who lived there, highly unlikely to be a hitman, as professionals don't typically arrive unarmed and rely on improvised weapons. Curiously, Marlene sustained far more injuries than Mauricio, particularly in her abdomen, leading some to speculate that Yonye harbored deep resentment toward his mother. These wounds were possibly symbolic, a way for him to express anger over being brought into a world where he felt unloved. Despite planning the attack meticulously, Yonye's choice of a knife suggested a desire to carry out his revenge personally, wanting to feel every moment of control and anger firsthand. An analysis of Mauricio's body revealed high levels of clonazepam in his system, a sedative that can cause drowsiness and confusion, raising the possibility that Yonye had administered a significant dose to incapacitate him. Though Mauricio didn't reach a comatose state, the drug likely left him severely disoriented. Additionally, investigators discovered a pre-written suicide note, suggesting that Yonye had intended to frame Mauricio from the start. Yonye reportedly forced Mauricio to sign the note, which was left at the crime scene. After committing the murders, Yonye, using gloves to avoid leaving fingerprints, staged the scene to make it appear as a suicide. The housekeeper, upon arrival to help with the investigation, noticed that cleaning supplies were not in their usual place, and there were traces of blood on the stairs, suggesting that Yonye hadn't managed a thorough cleanup. At 11 a.m., Yonye was captured on camera leaving the mansion. Mauricio's driver, Jair, received an unusual message that morning, purportedly from Mauricio, instructing him not to send the housekeeper because he wanted to sleep. The message seemed suspicious because Mauricio habitually ended messages with "baby," especially with trusted friends like Jair. Additionally, several of Mauricio's contacts received voice messages that sounded like a farewell. Investigators later confirmed these recordings were actually made by Yonye, impersonating his brother. The final question remained: how long would Yonye face in prison? Officially, he could be sentenced to up to 50 years, though experts believed he might receive closer to 30, with some speculating a potential reduction to 15 years due to his claims of coercion. Further leniency could come from good behavior, potentially cutting his sentence even shorter. Despite common delays in such cases, Yonye's lawyer faced criticism for excessive stalling, even receiving threats for the audacious postponements. Throughout this process, Yonye showed little remorse. Many speculated that his only regret was not executing the plan more effectively to avoid capture. His resentment toward Mauricio stemmed from feeling overshadowed, as he had often relied on the reputation of being Mauricio Leal's brother to attract clients, yet struggled with debts as his own salon never thrived. After Mauricio's death, the question arose: what would happen to his estate? His assets, valued at over $1 million, officially passed to his half-brother, Carlos Andrés Garcia, who remains in prison with a release date estimated around 2030. Without a direct heir capable of managing his business empire, Mauricio's salons were closed. The case has captivated the nation, sparking countless theories and speculation. With each new revelation from lawyer Elmer Montaña, the complexity and murkiness of unraveling the truth become ever clearer. A recently uncovered video found on Mauricio Leal's phone has sent shockwaves across the country. In the clip, Mauricio appears distressed, seemingly forced to take the blame for his mother's murder as her lifeless body lies beside him. This shocking evidence surfaced long after the crime, which originally took place in November 2021, shedding new light on a story that only seems to grow darker as more details emerge. Thanks for tuning in to Unreal True Crime. If you're intrigued by mysteries from around the world, check out our new channel, Latin Crimes, where we dive into the gripping true crime stories of Latin America. Don't miss out. Subscribe now for more thrilling investigations.